All right, welcome back to Monday Meeting. This is the 3 of 7 project, and I'm your host, Chili. Blake's here, Cornbread's here with swollen calves.
Not swollen no more.
Huh?
They're not swollen anymore.
Well, they were. And Paris James has got a mic today. We're going to hope we can extract some information out of him. I know he's got a lot to say about this.
Content.
He is the content man. I know he has a lot to say about this. He's already given me some insight into what he thinks.
Chad's not working again.
Huh?
Chad's not working again.
Well, that's almost not worth mentioning because we're so accustomed to it. But yes, Chad is not here. He's on vacation. So he's
Again.
So I've got to step in and host, but that's just what I do. I mean, Squad Zero, me and Chad, I'm half of Squad Zero, so half of zero is, I'm not really sure. I think that's still zero, but anyway, I'll pick up the mantle where I have to, That's just what I'm used to.
He didn't even submit his leave
chit. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. Have you ever got one from him?
No.
A leave chit? Because when he's out, he's supposed to report to you.
Yeah.
When who is? Chad?
Chad.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I ain't heard nothing from him. Maybe he quit.
He's AWOL.
Yeah. Maybe he quit.
He may have quit.
Yeah.
He is AWOL.
Well,
without
if
leave.
Chad ever does quit, it will be just like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We won't know.
I agree.
He won't have told us.
Literally, all he does is take vacations anymore. He knows we do podcasts Monday and Wednesday. He can take his vacation on a different time.
That's what I thought too, but it is what it is.
He's been avoiding this message for some reason.
He has he not?
He has. We've been trying to get to this for like 3 weeks.
That's a good point. That's a good point. We got through the first half of Matthew 27, and he has either dipped out, diverted the conversation, or just refused to talk about it.
There's something with RC, I think.
Man.
Yeah, I did. I heard that Martin Luther did not like this passage. He did not. Wow. He had views about it, and he said, if you don't agree with me, you're an idiot.
I'm glad we're here and we're able to get to it today because this is the biggest.
That is the biggest. That's what I was thinking about is the not that we shouldn't have reverence when we talk about this and study it every time, whether it's Matthew 1, 13, or 27, or whatever the subject is. It's all. But this is the pinnacle here. Yep. I mean, you are literally talking about the event that God himself sacrificed his son, himself in flesh, to provide a way for salvation to you, to reconcile you. I mean, it all leads to this, but this is it. I mean, this is
pages, right? All of this.
Yeah.
Goes to this.
Yeah.
All this. About this.
That's right.
I mean, that's a big deal, you know. So it's serious, and it's once again, I want to keep reiterating that it's all serious and all should be spoken about with reverence. But this is it. So it also is very interesting, starting in verse 45, where we'll pick up. I have a lot of questions. I mean, it is the most significant event in human history, and there is some things that are like, well, what is that about? And what was that like? And why did Matthew say this? And I think there's a lot of opportunity here to cross-reference with the other Gospels, which we'll do a little bit later. But, I mean, starting right off the bat, the 6th hour until the 9th hour, there was darkness over all the land. What's that about?
I think from past study, and I think that would be at 3 o'clock their time at that time, 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, it wasn't night.
Right.
And it was just darkness.
Dark. and at the time of the Passover, the moon would be on the other side of the sun, so an eclipse would be impossible. See what I'm saying? So why were people not like, whoa?
Well, maybe they were. That was my question. Were people not freaking out?
I would think, but is it recorded anywhere?
Not that I know of, but I mean, you do hear a little bit later there's a moment where some guarding Jesus, say this surely this was the Son of God.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that must have been happening amongst basically everybody there at different points.
We're thinking, what have we just done?
Like, I'm sure there was some people right when the darkness came, they said, huh.
Yeah.
And maybe others didn't. Maybe they thought, that could be it's a coincidence, and then something else happened and they were like, okay. I think slowly pretty much everyone there was probably realizing this is something here.
Right.
Something else is going on. This is different. I'm not really sure who we just crucified.
And I thought too, was it dark just there, across that land, or was it dark everywhere?
It says all the land.
My version says at noon, darkness fell across the whole land until 3 o'clock.
Until 3 o'clock. Okay.
And then it says at about 3 o'clock, Jesus called out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Wow.
But it says over the whole land. I don't know how far that land stretched, but
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely hard to say if that means the entire world or just that region, but it doesn't really matter.
No, it don't. Not at all.
Well, and I don't know what exactly it meant, but at that point, light had been removed from the world. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spiritually, and then literally, physically, we see that. So I think it's definitely both. I'm sure there was a big spiritual darkness in that time of the way that people, of what they experienced then too.
Yeah.
And at that 9th hour, Jesus cries out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And that's just I guess it's just an interesting thing to look at Jesus in that moment. And we always talk about the humanness of Jesus, and then obviously his nature being God himself. It just how I don't know, wild, incomprehensible that interplay is, because I mean God taking on flesh, we can't really understand that,
right?
And what his, it's just always so interesting to me how he was human and he felt human things, yet he maintained his divine nature.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's hard to understand how he maintained both. But that's just an example of how he did. I mean, he asked, "Why have you forsaken me?" to the Lord, who he was calling out to, and what follows is interesting to me. This man is calling for Elijah, some said. Immediately, one of them ran and took a sponge, filled it with sour wine, and put it on a reed, and offered it to him to drink. The rest said, "Leave him alone. Let us see if Elijah will come to save him." Then Jesus cried out again with a loud voice and yielded up his spirit. Yeah, it's so wild to me. Like, it's recorded. It's not that it isn't recorded well, but you just miss what it looked like and what people were really thinking.
Yeah.
And experiencing. I mean,
Right.
I think that moment was very intense.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like, you can just read this kind of quickly and go by it and be like, okay, yelled out, and it went. I mean, that would have been like, when your hair stands up on your arms and stuff. There's an intense.
Yeah.
I mean, that. I don't think you had a choice but to be affected by. Like, if you were around and witnessing this. Yeah. The spirit was moving.
And that, what he said, my God, why have you abandoned me, is the beginning of Psalms 22.
Yeah.
Also, which, and I don't understand why he put I guess that is Greek. Why?
Why
nowhere
he?
else.
That's what I was
Does
thinking.
the Bible list the Greek saying and followed by the English
it's like
translation?
here's exactly what he said, and Matthew wrote, "This means
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe because he's writing to the Jews, so maybe that was something the Jews wouldn't have
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
fully
I don't
understood what he was saying.
If Jesus literally said that, what language is that?
What was he speaking?
Yeah, I think Jesus typically spoke Aramaic.
Yeah.
But like that's not Aramaic, is it?
I don't know. I'm not a linguist.
I mean, because if that was, or is it Hebrew? I mean, if that was Hebrew, like why would he have? Who Matthew was writing to would have known what that.
Yeah.
It's just I don't know. It's interesting to me too.
And that Psalms 22 is basically the prophecy of all of this happening. You know, it talks about him crying out in the dark. It talks about him casting lots talks about his joints, bones being out of place, you know, from hanging on the cross.
That's Aramaic.
Okay.
Yeah, that.
Well, I guess that does explain why he would have then translated it, because it is funny when you think about it. Matthew didn't write this in English,
right?
How we're reading it, but he wrote the Aramaic that Jesus literally spoke, which is still in our Bible.
Yeah.
And then now we get the translated version, but when he wrote, that is my God, he wrote that in Greek.
Yeah.
So he would have wrote it in Aramaic, which Jesus literally said, and then in Greek.
Yeah, I think he's probably just like wanting to get it exactly right. Like this is exactly what he said versus everything else being translated by himself from Aramaic to Greek and then written in Greek.
Yeah, that's interesting. Very, because I don't, like you said, I don't know of another place where it's like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know that he. Do you think he was actually asking God, why have you forsaken me or abandoned me? Or do you think he was just beckoning back to this psalm so that, like, to draw, because he knew, right? You know, we think, like, at this point he's kind of confused, like he's lost. Why have you done this to me, Lord? But I don't think he was literally asking God because of his unknowing. I think he was referencing back to that Psalms 22.
That's what I think.
Well, I mean, it has to be, because if he was literally asking God that, you know, not as a reference to something or not for another reason, then it would be because he genuinely wondered that.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't wonder that. Right. I mean, we can't believe he actually was confused about why this was happening. He knew. So I don't think there's a place to view it any other way.
Yeah.
But we already mentioned the darkness. So that's a big physical sign, or a big physical realm sign. And even Korn got into it earlier by saying that it wasn't an eclipse or anything. It wasn't basically the natural order of things had been intervened.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, it was a natural event. Darkness is natural, but it wasn't in the right. There was no natural explanation for why it happened at that time.
Yeah.
I think we see that again with the earthquake. The veil of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom, and the earth quaked and the rocks were split. So, I mean, stopping there, like once again, earthquakes are natural, but all of that, including the darkness, it was something that had no natural explanation.
Well, I talked to someone Resurrected last night about, God is just, but he also forgives sin. So Jesus was the answer to that dilemma. How can he be perfectly just and punish every wrong to the fullest, but also forgive sin? Well, his wrath had to be satisfied, and that was satisfied on Jesus. So Jesus literally took the sins of all of humanity, put it on himself, and then God took out his wrath for all of humanity on Jesus. And because he was perfect and wasn't due that wrath, then that satisfied the requirement. But if we look in the Old Testament at times that God's justice showed through, like when Uzzah touched the Ark of the Covenant when it went to fall and he was struck dead, or when Ananias and Sapphira were killed for lying, or when Lot's wife turned to look back to Sodom and Gomorrah. And we would see all of that, and we're like, man, Moses didn't get into the promised land because he struck the rock. He sinned against God. We say, that's pretty tough.
Yeah.
You know, that's some wrath. But then you figure when those things happen, and we think that that's intense, but when the wrath of God is carried out on all of humanity, I think that's why these things are happening. Like, it's literally affecting the way the world moves and the way the world works, because it's the sins of the world. The earth shakes. It turns to dark. Like, those things weren't happening in the Old Testament because of one person's sin. They were just killed or had this, what we thought would be a severe punishment. But when he is carrying out his wrath on humanity as a whole, I think that's why we start to see these supernatural things happening in the natural.
Yeah. I agree with that. Also, he yielded up his spirit.
Yeah.
He gave his spirit up.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. I don't really have much to add on that. James, what you got content?
Y'all good with it, but I'd like to talk on that veil.
Okay.
The purpose of that veil being torn, because you didn't need that veil anymore.
Right, yeah.
Jesus, I mean, there's your contact.
Yeah.
But you wonder, what did they think with that veil being ripped, tore?
Yeah, because the veil in this time would have served as only the people who were they would cover themselves in this sacrificial blood and follow these steps, and they were declared clean, and they could go behind the veil to be in the presence of God.
Yeah.
And they do that once a year?
Once a year, I think. Was
Yeah.
it not one time a year?
I'm not sure how often it was.
I think it was twice a year, but only I may be wrong on this, but once a year they could actually go through into the presence of God.
But the lay people, I mean, just
Not just anybody.
nobody.
could do
Just,
that.
yeah,
just
right.
the
That's
priest.
just the
Yeah.
There was the intermediary. It was like Moses going to Mount Sinai to meet with God, and everyone else waited at the base of the mountain.
Right.
This one person could go through there, and I've even heard said that they would tie a bell around the foot of the priest in case he fell over dead. They'd tie a rope around his ankle. If they quit hearing the bell jingle, nobody could go in and get him, so they would have to be able to pull it, or else they would die. And so the veil being torn represents that now we can go to God, and we don't have to do all of these sacrificial rituals, or maybe ritual's not the right word, but these sacrificial practices in order to present ourselves clean to God, because Jesus' blood is the sacrificial blood that covers us. So now we can go to God in prayer through Jesus' blood and name. So yeah, I mean, I think that's the significance of the veil being torn. But isn't that crazy that like this happened, and then however far the temple was away from where this was happening, the veil is torn?
Right, yeah.
I mean, there was a physical veil in the temple, but like Blake's saying, there's also the,
Spiritual.
yeah, symbolic veil that was over everything, and like
That thing was like
That
thing was like
once it-
18 inches thick, that veil.
I've done some reading, like some people said it might have been 12 foot thick.
And, I mean, it was just
Yeah,
like,
I've heard
seriously.
6 and 6 foot thick, 12 foot thick.
At any rate, we know it's not like a sheet.
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't like tearing
You
a
couldn't
sheet.
see through it for sure.
But what did these priests and all, I mean, what in the world did they think was going on when all that junk was, I mean, how did that not affect them? You don't ever hear of anything like, wow, they believed, because look at all this stuff that happened in the temple.
Yeah, as I read through it, I'm like, why didn't everybody just say, yeah? Like,
I'm sure a lot of them did.
Like,
I think so too. I mean,
I'm talking about everybody.
Yeah.
Like, why didn't they wasn't just like, this is definitely the Son of God. Like, look at what, it's dark when it ain't supposed to. The veil's ripped.
Rock
However,
splitting.
It's the earth is quaking, man. We messed up big time here.
Well, you think people then are like people now, and I'm sure the government would say, oh, well, that was, but today they would say, well, that was because of this, and it was just an odd event. This doesn't typically happen together, but this caused that, and that the veil ripped because the earth was shaking so much, and it just happened, And then there's going to be the people that hang on every word that comes from you. News and your government and your authorities, and don't think for themselves. So you're always going to have those people, but I would think that many of them probably did realize what was going on. Common sense would tell you some of them did.
Right.
Well, there's a lot of those physical signs and natural events that were supernaturally caused, like the ripping of the veil and everything else, but the strangest one to me, and the one that opens up the most questions, and I think will take about 30 minutes to talk about, is the graves were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised, and coming out of the graves after his resurrection, they went into the holy city and appeared to many. So, do you notice what's odd in that? Obviously, it's crazy that graves were opened and saints were resurrected. But the phrase that gets me, and coming out of the graves after his resurrection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He put it in there a little early.
I mean, that's very interesting. Right here, we're talking about the moment that Jesus dies. He's not even buried yet. And we have a reference to after his resurrection.
Yeah.
That's very, very interesting to me. I can't explain why it would have been written that way in that order, but the question is open to me. I'm not going to act like, for one, am not going to act like this ain't nuts. The graves were opened upon Jesus, presumably upon Jesus' death. Is that when you think the graves were opened?
I think this is thinking, me thinking. I just think he got ahead of himself. That's where he inserted that.
Really?
I mean, who knows?
Well, I mean, I guess there's many theories you could have because a lot is left to question. I mean, if you read it, there is no delineation grammatically between the list of events here. He says, then, so right when Jesus yielded up his spirit, behold, the veil of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom, and the earth quaked, and the rocks were split, and the graves were open.
Yeah.
Like, it's sequential. It's not, I mean, you're meant to read that as right then, or all of that happened at once.
Yeah.
But then it says after the resurrection.
I know. And then he continues with, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised, and coming out of the graves after his resurrection, they went into the holy city and appeared to many. But that first sequence of events, that first order, that first list, I mean, it's all together. There's no grammatical change that would indicate, well, the veil of the temple, the earthquake, the rock splitting, that was right then, and now I'm talking about later when the graves were open.
Yeah.
Well, you would think immediately when he died, that's the first place he went.
Where?
To release the saints.
Well, yeah. When that would have been immediately. I mean, timelines are weird, especially when you're talking about death and what is going on in the spiritual realm, because it's operating differently. I mean, because once the physical body is dead and the spirit is yielded up, the timeline of what the spirit's doing, heck if I know how you even track that. But
so, do you think that all of the people who died before Jesus, like, are you saying that they were in their graves, like not present with the Lord, and then once he died, they all came out of their graves because their sin had been covered, and at that point they could be in the presence of God, but they couldn't before that because Jesus hadn't died yet?
Absolutely.
What about when they saw, who did they see? One of the prophets with, I don't know, I'd have to look. They see one of the prophets, Elijah or something.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was...
Elijah and Abraham
presumably
was together.
they went to be with the Lord. Like they didn't even
He
die.
didn't die. So
Yeah. Elijah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And what about Is he the only one that is referenced as
That I
being
know
seen
of.
with?
Yeah, the only one would
Sins.
be Moses and Elijah. And neither one of them, there's no really a record of Moses dying.
Yeah.
There's never been a grave found. So
I mean, all I know is like Elijah. I mean, you would say he didn't die.
Yeah.
So that's how do you explain that, or how do you say you couldn't be with the president, or
Yeah.
I mean that.
I mean, all their sacrifices and all that they did was just to where they could. That was for their earthly bodies and their relationship with God on earth. They couldn't. That didn't atone for their sins. There was no way for them without Jesus. That there's no way that they could have went to heaven.
So you think they were in like purgatory?
I wouldn't call it purgatory, but I think that what studying I've done, there's like different levels of hell.
Yeah.
Well, that's what purgatory is.
Yeah, it's kind of that middle ground
That's
of
what I mean, there's really nothing else you could call that.
right.
Call it
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot to be asked there because graves were open, and also it says many. I mean, this is maybe a translation thing here, but and many bodies of the saints. So it is not even all of them.
Yeah, I thought that too. Yeah, and many bodies of the
Yeah.
saints.
I mean, what is that? Maybe many meaning all but Elijah because he was already there. No, I mean, I'm just being funny with that, but that's odd to me. Many bodies.
Maybe it was just certain ones that was seen.
It could be.
I mean, it could.
I mean,
I think they was all, and can you imagine? That'd be a lot of people.
oh yeah. Oh, it was a lot, for sure.
But there again, that was just proof of really what Jesus was. That man, look at these here they come out of the graves.
Yeah, you see that timeline jump. The graves were open, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised, and coming out of the graves after his resurrection. So there's one theory, if you will, to read this as saying that the graves were opened right then. I mean, like it says.
Right.
But basically, they didn't come out of the grave until after his resurrection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some people view that. I've read what Martin Luther had to say about that, and he views it as very significant. If I understood, like I look back, going way back to Ignatius and all throughout the years. So that's 1,000 years before Martin Luther. But I believe they were all pretty in agreement that it was important that Jesus was the first. Like his resurrection was first.
He was the first one to come out of the grave.
Basically to come out of the grave. That the graves were open maybe, but I guess they just sat there. I don't know what that looked like either. But they viewed it as significant and important that Jesus was the first to resurrect and come out of the grave. And that, sure, the graves were open. Yep, they agree with what I was saying, the timeline, that all happened at once. But they didn't come out of the grave and awake and rise and be seen by people until Jesus had first.
Yeah.
Like he led the way out of the grave, basically, with the resurrection.
Yeah,
and I can follow that.
If it was the other way around, it would be like Jesus died so that person could be resurrected. And so then the emphasis becomes on the people coming, the dead people coming out of their grave. I could get behind that.
I mean, because if you go with that, the graves were opened doesn't indicate anybody even came to life yet, it just says the graves were open.
Doors being popped off.
Whatever that means, like the graves were okay. So the graves are open now, but nobody's like that's what I'm saying. Like were they just sitting there like a zombie? I mean, no, I don't think so. I think the graves were open, but they were still dead, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised when.
Maybe that's when he was. Maybe that's when he was ministering to them.
I don't know. I mean, there's definitely.
Then he comes back. He says that. He says they left the cemetery after the resurrection, went to the holy city of Jerusalem, and appeared to many people. So he's finishing his point. He's like, Jesus died. All of these things happened, and even after his resurrection, these people came alive. And then he says, then he comes back to the earthquake and talks about the Roman officer. And the other soldiers at the crucifixion. So I think he's making his point. Hey, Jesus died on the cross. All these things happened right about that time. And remember, I told you the doors come off the tomb? Well, those people even got up and walked after he resurrected. And then he comes back. I think it's the writing style. Then he comes back and says, now the officer's back at the cross during the earthquake.
Yeah.
It's just so funny, though, that, like, the resurrection, I mean, it's all one event, but Jesus' resurrection is more significant than his death in some ways. It's in it, you know.
Well, he could have died and not resurrected,
right?
And
right.
He would have been another
like
really good rabbi.
Exactly. So the first mention of the resurrection is basically just in passing.
Yeah.
It's like, well, and after many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised and coming out of the graves after Jesus' resurrection. They went. It's like, well, whoa, that's you hadn't even told me about that yet.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I wondered. Why was it put in?
It's
that. I mean,
it
that's
is
why
funny.
I assumed that. Well, maybe he jumped ahead of himself, or was
it is
Well,
just
it's
funny
like,
that it's mentioned in passing.
I'm not a grammar expert. What do you call that thing right there? A semicolon?
Yeah.
What happens when a semicolon goes down?
I mean, it's that in English that would be a break there. That's what I was saying.
And the reason I bring that up is because, like you were saying a while ago, that the graves open when the earthquake happened.
Is on this side of the.
On this side.
Yeah.
Yep. So I believe you're right about that. And then he was like, well, I got to tell what was up with the graves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think maybe he was just finishing, hey, this is why the graves were open. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's all got to do with that veil being torn too. I mean,
For sure.
I always go back to that.
Right. I
Because
agree.
that veil being torn, that's where it opened all of this up.
Yeah.
So then we get the first moment that we see of a recording of someone, and it was the guards acknowledging truly this was the Son of God. So that's a significant moment and definitely gives insight. I don't think we get the full insight. Like I said, I imagine that was happening a lot, but it is at least recorded there of, well, okay, the guards were like, this is God. This is the Son of God, and we have just crucified him. And we also get the first mention of these significant women, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary, mother of James. And they're just kind of mentioned there. They come into play later, but they were just Matthew just recorded them as looking on from afar. That's interesting to me. I mean, they come into play later, so I do get that, but they're just recorded there as looking on. Do you have anything on that, Paris James? I mean, it's all just interesting, the choices that were made in writing this to me. But then we come into Jesus' burial, which is prophecy is littered all over the Gospels, but that's a significant one. You know, in Isaiah, he would be buried with the rich, and he sure was. Joseph of Arimathea gave him his tomb. And I had a question for y'all, because it says, there came a rich man named Joseph, who himself had also become a disciple of Jesus. Mm-hmm. So earlier in the chapter, we talk a lot about the multitude following Jesus. And I don't think any of us would say that multitude were all his disciples. I mean, I wouldn't say that. I would say there was some there to scoff at him, some to you know.
I certainly think that some of them were disciples that weren't part of the 12. I think Jesus had many disciples. But he chose the 12. Yeah,
that's what I was getting to is the significance of the 12 later to be called apostles. As a delineation amongst the disciples. We don't really. I think a lot of people just in the world they're familiar with. They're like, well, Jesus had 12 disciples. Well, like Blake said, I think he had, heck, I don't even know if hundreds hold it. I don't know how many.
But we're disciples.
I mean, even during his life, I think it was a lot.
Well, in chapter 10, it says, Jesus called his 12 disciples together and gave them authority to cast out evil spirits and heal every kind of disease and illness. And then it says, here are the names of the 12 apostles.
Yeah.
So it says he called his disciples, and here are the names of the 12 apostles. And we would say that we actually just, the pastor at church just talked about this on Sunday.
Jesus sent out other disciples to do things too.
Yeah.
Not named. That's in another gospel. Like,
yeah, he was talking about the difference in the what these words actually mean. Where disciples means like you sit at the feet of your teacher and you're like absorbing everything that they have to say. And there could have been many people that did that, but the word apostle literally means to be like sent out, like sent out to do the work. So you have one that's like, all right, I'm sitting here learning, and you become apostle when you are sent out to do things. And then in verse 5 it says Jesus sent out the 12 apostles with these instructions. And so I think that's the delineation between those two terms. And I don't know why we got there, but
yeah, well, because Joseph of Arimathea being a disciple of Jesus. You've never heard of him. He's not a 12 apostle, but he is a disciple. I mean, I think that is further evidence that there was a lot of disciples. And I'm just curious about that because it just brings it to mind. Why did Jesus have 12 apostles? If he had hundreds of disciples, or I shouldn't say that because I don't know how many, but a lot, clearly more than the 12, what was the significance of him naming and choosing to be set apart from that group of disciples, 12? You know, why 12? Why was it the 12 that it was? Those are all questions. Do you think that there's symbolism with the 12 tribes of Israel is why he picked 12 to be set apart?
That makes sense.
I mean, that's kind of what I started thinking, that there must be significance too. Because, I mean, I guess you could say it's a coincidence, but that also feels odd to say.
Yeah, it does.
That, like, he just randomly picked, there was no reason for 12. It was just who it happened to be. I mean, that could be.
Well, we also see, the verse, many are called, but few are chosen.
Yeah.
When he's sitting on, when he's doing the Sermon on the Mount, and there's many disciples there. Many are called, right? He's casting this out to many, but he only chose a few of those many, not for salvation, but for a specific purpose.
Yeah.
Right.
That's not to say, also think that's where we get a bit confused with this predestination talk and think it's all based around salvation. And I mean, many were called, but he just chose the 12. Not saying that just the 12 are going to get to dwell with him in heaven, but just the 12 had that specific purpose. They were chosen for that purpose.
Right.
Not for salvation. And I think we kind of see that here in the differentiation between disciple and apostle. There are many disciples, but he just chose 12 apostles for a specific purpose, to follow him and then to start his early church.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild though. Just that a disciple that you haven't heard from yet comes out of the woodwork, who's a rich man, fulfills prophecy and says he can have my tomb. Yeah, there it was. And
well, and wouldn't you think that he would have been pretty close to Jesus?
oh yeah, I mean, if he had to. I mean, yeah, you would think if he did that.
Yeah.
I mean, he gave him. I don't really know the significance of what he did, but that's, you wouldn't think a rich man would. I mean, he gave his. He had to find another one.
Yeah, it wouldn't.
And that wasn't no simple thing. Like,
right.
If you've done carved out of a rock where you're going to be laid, that took some serious work
Oh, yeah.
to carve out something out of a solid rock.
And it's also interesting that Pilate, when Joseph of Arimathea came up, who I think Joseph of Arimathea was a member of like a Jewish council. He wasn't just a rich man. He was a significant leader.
Was he?
Yes. He had a role to play in the councils of something. I'd have to look again, but it's so I don't know. I imagine he went directly to Pilate and was like, "Yeah, I'm taking control of this burial."
Yeah, this
and Pilate said, we finally hear from Pilate again. We haven't heard from him a while because we were seeing that him and particularly his wife earlier, as going through the trial, was starting to maybe think, I think this might be
Right.
who he said he is. Well, now what's he thinking? I mean,
That was me. I was like, after all of this, I mean,
yeah.
what
Pilate was already seeming to kind of be reluctant to do this, and now they've crucified him, and all of this has happened. I mean, I imagine Pilate at this point it doesn't say it, but I imagine now he is fully convinced that.
Right.
Chuck Smith had a thing on a letter. It's real interesting. I wished I knew the name of it now. That was supposedly wrote by Pilate after the crucifixion and resurrection, and where he's talking to, I think it's Caesar or somebody. But
Gosh, they have that letter?
They have that letter. It's not.
Wow.
They can't say for sure
that
it is actually from Pilate, but it's very interesting how he describes that he was the Messiah, that he come to the conclusion.
Yeah.
You can do some research through Chuck Smith and find that letter, but it's a pretty beautiful letter how he describes it, how, he really was, and the sorrow in his heart for all that happened.
Right.
Very interesting.
This does reference that Joseph of Arimathea was a secret disciple of Jesus, and he was a religious leader and honored member of the High Council.
Yeah. Okay.
And references Mark 15:43 as
That secret disciple.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with that.
But anyway, he is why Jesus had a proper burial, I think you would say, wrapped in a clean linen cloth, laid it in a tomb of his own, which he had hewn out of the rock. Like you said, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And he rolled a large stone against the door of the tomb and departed. And then Pilate, and also we get the reference again that the Marys were sitting opposite the tomb. They had been watching and followed him all the way to his grave.
I think that just is, he's giving credibility. I think Matthew's like saying, hey, other people saw this. This was like these two people that you guys probably know about, and they seen this happen.
It definitely makes you think, too, that they were the only two who followed him to his grave.
Yeah.
So, once again, sometimes details can be left out that it's not a bad thing or it's not a problem, but it's just like, who knows, maybe a bunch of people went, but it's only two are recorded. But it makes you think that the apostles are nowhere to be found.
But you would think the government would just have droves of people to document that, all right, he is in here.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be my assumption, that they wouldn't want somebody to say, well, there's only a couple people carried him to the tomb. I mean, I don't know that, but
I don't know either. I just know that it's significant to me that two women were presumably the only two there. His apostles not, whatever, but maybe they were there too, or maybe they were around. I don't know, but Pilate then sets a guard, and it be made, he commanded that it be made secure, lest his disciples come by night. So clearly they were around. I mean, there was talk and worry about like what are they're going to do, who knows what they're going to do. There probably was a little bit of an uproar about what had just been done amongst all of Jesus' disciples. And they wanted to kind of quell that. The Pharisees get involved. They go to Pilate and they say, "You remember the guy said he was going to raise again after he died."
And you remember it got dark and that veil tore and
the earthquake. And we got all these graves over here. They wide open. Yeah. We don't know what's up with that.
They were like, so just watch, because they're like, he lied, but like just something's fishy going on.
Yeah.
It is kind of funny. And And so, yeah, that's kind of the impetus, I think, behind Pilate setting a guard. And, they really
It's funny they say, too, they told him, "Sir, we remember what that deceiver once said while he was still alive."
Yeah, he also said a lot of this other stuff, too. But
Yeah, a lot of these things he said was coming true, but he was still a deceiver. And, he said this, so we request that you seal the tomb until the third day. and they cover it up by saying, this will prevent his disciples from coming and stealing his body and then telling everyone that he raised from the dead. So they're saying he might actually do it, but we're going to discredit it by saying that this was the reason why we want you to seal the tomb.
Yeah.
Well, you'd think after everything that went on when he died that they'd be like, whoa, this is really going to happen.
That just blows my mind.
I mean, how could you not even right then they would have knew, well, this is fixing to happen.
What blows your mind, Corn? That like the Pharisees were still
at it. You know what I mean? After they done seen it turn dark,
Denying it.
They know the veil was tore, and I get, and I agree with, hey, they could have been, well, the earthquake, and that's why the veil tore, and so, but I mean, the graves open up. I guess that was the earthquake caused the graves to open up.
Yeah, it's just hard to put yourself in all of their shoes, because you got to think about how convinced they were that the Messiah would look a certain way.
Yeah,
that he would do a certain thing. Yeah. They were wrong, but they were incredibly studied, incredibly smart.
Yeah.
They had their view of it, and Jesus was not doing the things that they would have said, I know he's going to do this.
Right.
I know it. So then, even then, you got to think, I agree. You start thinking they would, start to relinquish what they had thought.
Yeah.
But they're so convinced and have good arguments for why they think this and can reference scripture and know it like the back of their hand. And they're like, I know he's not doing this. Like, we were supposed to see this and Jesus didn't do it. We were supposed to see this and Jesus did it. Now he's dead. Like, I just have to believe that their own pride and their legitimate knowledge of what was supposed to come, they were wrong, but you can be really convinced of something and be wrong. And I get the state that they were in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't that they were just scoffers really of Jesus than just, they were, but they had reason that they could back up why you ain't it, dude.
Yeah.
Like, you are not. They were wrong once again. Yeah. I can't reiterate that, but they could have argued well their point.
Yeah.
So they were just like, it can't be, and it was warping their whole mind. It was their whole life and idea was just crumbling, and I think even to this point, they're like, it couldn't have been him. So if he raises again, they faked it because it could not have been. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I just think that's the mindset they were coming at it with.
But I think we even have that today.
Well, that's what I'm getting to. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, no,
that's just what I was thinking. It's the same as today.
That's kind of what I was getting to, because I think we have legitimate believers that view the end times like the end times are going to look like this.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The rapture is going to, and like if it starts to happen and it's not the way I've got it in my mind, then something else is going on.
Yeah.
And that's what they think, and and there will be people like that when the end is here will be looking at whatever is happening and go, that ain't it.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I've said. I've said that the past few times, that I'm always cautious to things that go on to say that is not fulfillment of some prophecy that is to come.
You better cling loosely to.
It's not how I pictured it happening, because we see that happened with quite a lot of people at the last big deal.
Yeah, man. Like, once again, I remember a long time ago with a Monday meeting when Bob was here.
Yeah.
We named that, Pharisee sympathizer, because I kept saying, like, I get part of it. I mean, I just can read, I can just see myself and people of the world today in what they were doing and how they thought.
Yeah.
And part of it that really, I guess, sympathizes with them is how studied they were.
Yeah.
They weren't ignorant of, like, they weren't just conspiracy theorists on the internet, with random ideas backed by nothing.
Yeah.
No, they would have debated you well.
And the generation it happens to is going to be
Yeah.
come on, man. All these, I'm in the generation that he's here. Like, come on.
Exactly.
How many years had it been since,
And
they've been talking about that?
But man, that's just so relevant to me with how much we look to the second coming and to the end times and to the rapture and to the tribulation that's going to be rough.
So much other scripture. I mean, not just the end times, but so many other. I mean, that's why you have divisions of different churches and everything else, is because, well, this is how it is, and anything else is y'all crazy.
Yeah. So even like if somebody is healed today, like Blake, where the deal was where that happened to his finger and the prayer and then the pain left. Well, people will explain that out. They don't want to say, "Wow, man, that was Jesus."
Yeah.
I mean, it's just I don't know why that is. That everybody wants to explain out something of God.
Well, part of it, I think, is maybe we shouldn't get too caught up in this, but I do think it's important because of the relevance and application to today is, I mean, the Pharisees and us today we're really concerned with being deceived.
Yeah.
I mean, and as we should. I mean, you should be on guard and on the lookout of that.
Especially from our leadership.
Exactly.
In
like
America.
Yeah, I mean, the culture in the world today, and particularly America, is more skeptical of what their government is being put forth. I mean, we're glued to our phones now, and now every day you hear AI's getting so good we can't tell the difference between what's real and what's not real. Like, that's setting a heck of a stage for the for the end,
Yeah.
And like, I just think the Pharisees were probably worried about being deceived. Like, this doesn't match up, and they called him a deceiver. I mean, they were like, I don't think this guy's, I see the malice in what they were doing, but I also see the genuine seeking of the truth.
Well, and they see that because Jesus was flipping everything they thought upside down.
Yep.
So say we have this way of thinking, and someone comes along and tells the entire body of Christ and says, y'all all have it wrong. And everyone else is like, no, we don't.
Yeah.
We all agree we don't. And you're one person saying, and then, so you can definitely see if you put that in today's time.
Yeah, we're being told a deceiver is coming.
Yeah.
Who will fool many.
Right.
I mean, it's just, it is very difficult, but we also have to cling to when Jesus actually returns, it will basically be impossible to mistake that. Like, some people might think it's happening before it happens just because they, are enamored by some sign that somebody does. But like, when the real deal happened, like, you ain't going to mistake it. And I think that is what just happened here. And you still see people deny it, but like, I think that was unmistakable.
Yeah.
When Jesus died on the cross and resurrected, that at the time was
almost that.
Okay.
And that's why I'm like, whoa, man, they still at it.
Yeah. I know.
And I'm so glad that the Pharisees said that, because then had they not said that, there could have today even been the argument, well, the disciples went and stole him and said that he raised from the dead.
Well, there still is that argument. I mean,
well, yeah, but that there's many rebuttals against that. But one is that they had already saw that coming, so Pilate, the guy in charge, said, secure it the best that you can. So whatever that meant, put the tomb in front of it, tied the cord in front of the tomb or the stone, and then you had got guards placed there to protect it. So all of these precautions were taken to make it as secure as they could in the time that they were in.
I got a question. How that was recorded by Matthew? Like, how did he know, or who told him that the chief priests and Pharisees gathered together to Pilate? You know, I would think that would be like a private conversation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Like who knew about that conversation? So like they go to Pilate, have a meeting and say, "Sir, we remember he was still alive and he was saying he was going to rise again."
Yeah.
Like it's interesting, you know, and then you see that Pilate commanded it. Who saw that or who heard that? And
Yeah.
that's interesting to me.
Yeah, I don't know how things took place. You know, sometimes you see it portrayed as like the Pharisees coming to the Romans in like this public place, and they're kind of like talking.
That's what I wonder if
but
that
then
was.
also you see it sometimes portrayed as like a private chamber where they would go and be like, "Hey, look."
But, you know, maybe that stuff was documented, their meetings and stuff, even way
Yeah.
back then. Maybe it was documented
Public
things,
information,
yeah.
maybe.
Yeah, I just wonder, like, that meeting there, how private was that? How public was that? Who like, somebody heard that. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it had to be legit, or you wouldn't have wrote it. It
Oh,
wouldn't
yeah,
be
yeah. It's
be
just,
no hearsay.
it's interesting.
And it probably got around, hey, Jesus died, and Pilate's he's having them secure that tomb up good as they can, because the Pharisees thought that,
Yeah.
that they was going to steal it.
That 3 days, people were going nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was havoc.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
Pilate, you know, always wanted to maintain order and not chaos. I think it had to have been chaotic in those 3 days.
yeah.
I mean, the anticipation of him rising again for the ones that hope for that, the others trying to, you know, I think it would have been nuts.
Absolutely. And then when he did, not to jump forward, they go around Pilate and bribe the soldiers.
Yeah.
They didn't even
Yeah,
go to Pilate and say, "Hey, make your soldiers say this."
Yeah.
No, they went straight to the soldiers and bribed them and said, "Now, if Pilate finds out
Yeah.
that y'all was asleep, we'll go to him and say, no, they really wasn't asleep." You know.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, man. Well, we're about an hour in.
Yeah.
Y'all want to
Yeah.
get into 28 or stop here?
Nah, we'll cut it here because we got to get on to that lesson of the week, thoughts of the week.
Okay.
For Patreon, and we got through the hard part for Chad.
Yeah.
I'm
The
glad
part he
we
was avoiding.
able to do that for him. Literally the most important part.
Now you can come back to work.
I appreciate you hosting today's meeting, Chili.
Yeah.
You did good,
That
Bob.
was real good.
Did real good.
One of the best.
Yeah. Well, you was a minute late, but other than that, you did good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We don't air that out on the show.
We just did. Things are different. Chad's not here.
Well, thanks for listening. That's it.